Commander Vector stared at the display screen with all four of his eyes. The numbers made no sense. His ship had been mapping unexplored systems for 3 cycles now, and nothing had prepared him for this. "Commander, you need to see this," Science Officer Thren said. Her voice carried an edge that Vector rarely heard. Thren had studied over 200 civilizations. Nothing surprised her anymore. Until today. "What am I looking at?" Vector asked, moving closer to her workstation. "The 3rd planet in this system. It has life, advanced life. They have satellites in orbit, radio signals, nuclear technology." Thren paused, her breathing tubes flaring. "But, Commander, the readings are wrong. They must be wrong." Vector studied the data flowing across the screen. Chemical signatures in the atmosphere suggested industrial development. Energy signatures showed cities across the planet's surface. Everything pointed to a civilization that had reached the technological age. "I don't understand. What's wrong with the readings?" Thren pulled up a new screen. "The linguistic analysis. Commander, our computer has detected over 7,000 distinct languages being transmitted from that planet. 7,000. The words hung in the air between them. Vector felt his blood chill. That was impossible. Every civilization in the galaxy followed the same pattern. As a species developed, languages merged. By the time they reached radio technology, most species spoke 1 or 2 languages at most. By the time they reached space, they spoke 1. 7,000 meant chaos. It meant a civilization that should have destroyed itself long ago. "Are we certain these readings are accurate?" Vector asked. "I've run the analysis 4 times. The translation matrix nearly crashed trying to process all the data." "Commander, there's more." Thren brought up a planetary map covered in thousands of colored sections. "These appear to be political boundaries. Our best estimate is that this planet has approximately 200 separate nations." Vector sat down heavily. 200 nations. 7,000 languages. This planet should be a battlefield. Species didn't maintain that level of division and survive. The galaxy had learned this lesson countless times throughout history. "Have they achieved spaceflight?" Vector asked. "Limited. They have a space station in orbit with a small crew. But, Commander, here's what I cannot explain. The space station crew appears to come from multiple nations. They're working together." That made even less sense. How could nations distinct enough to maintain separate languages cooperate on something as complex as a space station? "Set course for the 3rd planet," Vector ordered. "We need to observe them more closely, but maintain stealth protocols. If this civilization is as fractured as it appears, we don't want to trigger a panic." The ship moved silently through space, approaching the blue and green planet. As they drew closer, more data flooded in. The planet teemed with life, with billions of inhabitants spread across every continent. High above the planet's surface, aboard the International Space Station, Captain Ji Woo Park floated through the laboratory module. She had been an astronaut for 5 years, but the view of Earth never stopped amazing her. The blue oceans, white clouds, and green continents seemed to glow against the darkness of space. "Ji-Woo, can you check the communication array?" called out Commander James Martinez from the main module. "We're getting some weird interference." "On my way," Ji-Woo responded. She pulled herself through the narrow corridor, her movements practiced and efficient in zero gravity. The communication array showed unusual readings. Strange signals that didn't match any known satellite or ground station. Ji-Woo frowned, running a diagnostic check. "James, I think we should report this to Houston," she said. "These signals aren't matching anything in our database." "Could it be equipment malfunction?" "Maybe, but I don't think so. The pattern is too regular. It's almost like something is scanning us." On the planet below, Dr. Min-Seo Kang sat in her laboratory at the Seoul Institute of Xenobiology. The field of xenobiology had always been theoretical. Humans had never found alien life, despite decades of searching. But Minseo believed they would someday, and she wanted to be ready. Her computer beeped with an alert. One of the atmospheric monitoring stations had detected unusual electromagnetic disturbances. Minseo pulled up the data, her interest growing. The disturbances had a pattern, appearing in different parts of the atmosphere over the past few hours. She opened her email and began writing to colleagues around the world: Dr. Sarah Okonkwo in Nigeria, Dr. Ahmed Hassan in Egypt, Dr. Carlos Rivera in Brazil. If these disturbances were real, she would need their data too. Aboard Vectar's ship, the crew continued their observations. They deployed small drones, each no bigger than a human hand, to major population centers. The drones transmitted images back to the ship. Security Chief Ralvin watched the displays with growing alarm. "Commander, look at this city!" He showed footage from a place called Seoul. Massive buildings, millions of people, technology everywhere. Now compare it to this one. Another city appeared, called Lagos. Different architecture, different clothing, different everything. And this one, Cairo. And this one, New York. Each city looked like it belonged to a completely different civilization. Yet all of them existed on the same planet, at the same time, at roughly the same technological level. "This should not be possible," Ralvin said. "Where is the dominant culture? Where is the unified empire? How have they not destroyed each other?" "I don't know," Vectar admitted, "but we're going to find out." Thren interrupted them. "Commander, I'm detecting something else. The inhabitants of this planet have created what appears to be a global communications network. They call it the Internet. I'm analyzing the data flow, and it shows constant exchange between all these different nations and cultures." "Exchange of what?" Vectar asked. "Everything. Information, entertainment, science, art. They're sharing knowledge across their entire planet, despite their differences." Thren looked up from her screen. "Commander, I've studied galactic history for my entire career. I've never seen anything like this. These humans are doing something that everyone else in the galaxy says is impossible." Vectar looked at the blue planet turning slowly on his screen. Something was happening here that challenged everything the galaxy understood about civilization. These humans had discovered something, or become something, that made them unique in known space, and Vectar needed to understand what that was. The observation drones had been active for 2 days now, sending back streams of data that confused Vectar's crew more with each passing hour. The aliens sat in their briefing room, watching footage from across the human world. "Look at this," Thren said, showing a video from a large building in a city called Geneva. Inside, humans from dozens of different nations sat around tables, talking. Sometimes they argued loudly. Sometimes they seemed angry with each other. But nobody attacked anyone. Nobody drew weapons. They just talked and talked. "What is this place?" Vectar asked. "They call it the United Nations. As far as I can determine, it's where representatives from all their nations meet to discuss problems and make agreements." Thren paused. "Commander, they've been doing this for 80 of their years." 80 years? Ralvin stood up from his seat. "Impossible. You're telling me 200 separate nations have been talking peacefully for 80 years. What holds them together? What force makes them cooperate?" "That's what I cannot determine," Thren admitted. "There's no supreme military power forcing cooperation. There's no single government controlling everything. They just choose to meet and talk." Vectar rubbed his face with one hand. In galactic history, peace came from strength. One culture became powerful enough to dominate all others. And through dominance came order. The Vrelian Empire had conquered 70 worlds to achieve peace. The Thosian Collective had engineered their entire species to think the same thoughts. That was how civilization worked. But humans seemed to be following a different path. one the galaxy had never seen before. "Show me more," Vectar ordered. The screens filled with images from around Earth. A hospital in a place called Lagos, where doctors from 12 different nations worked together treating patients. A research station in Antarctica, where scientists from 30 nations lived and worked in one of the planet's harshest environments. The International Space Station itself, where crew members from nations that had been enemies just decades ago now shared meals and worked side by side. "Look at this," Thren said, showing footage from a disaster zone. An earthquake had struck a region called Nepal. Within hours, rescue teams had arrived from around the world. Teams from Japan worked next to teams from India. Americans helped Europeans who helped Asians. They spoke different languages and came from different cultures, but they dug through rubble together, searching for survivors. "Why would they do this?" Ralvin asked. "What benefit does a nation gain from helping strangers on the other side of their planet?" Thren had no answer. It defied the logic that governed galactic civilization. Resources were limited. Helping others meant having less for yourself. Species that thought otherwise didn't survive long enough to reach space. Yet here were the humans, having reached space while still helping each other. Dr. Min Seo Kong sat at her desk in Seoul, video chatting with her colleague Dr. Sarah Okonkwo in Lagos. They had been friends for 6 years, ever since meeting at a conference in London. "I'm seeing the same atmospheric disturbances you reported," Sarah said, her image clear on Min Seo's screen despite the thousands of kilometers between them. "Ahmed in Cairo confirms similar readings. Carlos in Brazil, too." "It's too consistent to be equipment error," Min Seo said, "and the pattern suggests systematic scanning." "You think it's artificial?" Sarah asked. "I think we should consider the possibility that we're not alone anymore." Sarah was quiet for a moment. "If that's true, we need to alert more people. I'll contact the observatory network. You reach out to the space agencies?" "Already started," Min Seo confirmed. "I sent a preliminary report to Korea's space program and copied NASA, ESA, and JAXA. If something is up there scanning us, we need to know." After their call ended, Min Seo sat back in her chair. She felt excited rather than afraid. If aliens were really observing Earth, what would they think of humanity? Would they see a world of conflict and division? Or would they see what Min Seo saw when she looked at her work? A global network of scientists from every culture working together toward common goals. Aboard the alien ship, Vectar called up historical records from the Galactic database. He wanted to compare Earth to other civilizations at similar development stages. The Korthan species had maintained 7 distinct nations when they discovered nuclear technology. Within 3 years, nuclear war had reduced their population by 90%. The survivors united out of desperation, but they lost most of their cultural heritage. The Vrelian species had 43 nations when they reached the space age. 50 years of warfare followed before the strongest empire conquered all others. Unity came at the cost of millions of lives and the extinction of 42 unique cultures. The Xelon species had managed to unite peacefully, but only after genetic engineering removed their capacity for strong emotion. They achieved peace by giving up part of what made them individuals. Every path to unity in galactic history involved loss. Loss of life, loss of culture, or loss of identity. But humans seem to be finding a different way. Thren showed Vectar footage of something called the Olympics. Athletes from every nation on Earth competed against each other. They fought hard to win. National pride was clearly important. Yet after the competitions, Vectar watched winners from one nation embrace competitors from rival nations. He saw athletes from countries with political tensions laughing together. He saw humans celebrating excellence regardless of which nation achieved it. "They compete without trying to destroy each other," Thren said with wonder in her voice. "They maintain their separate identities while respecting others. How is this possible?" "Show me their wars," Vectar said. "They must have wars. No species reaches this stage without conflict. Thren pulled up human history. The images were horrific. 2 world wars that killed millions, nuclear weapons, genocides, ongoing conflicts in multiple regions. Humans clearly knew how to wage war. "But look at this, Commander," Thren said. She showed graphs of warfare over time. The scale and frequency of wars has been decreasing. They're becoming less violent as a species, not more. And look at this. She showed treaties, peace agreements, international laws. They're creating systems to prevent war, not prepare for it. "Maybe they're weak," Ralvin suggested. "Maybe they're too afraid to fight anymore." "No," Thren said. "Look at their weapons. They have enough nuclear weapons to destroy their planet several times over. They're not weak. They're choosing restraint." Vector stood and walked to the viewport, looking at the blue planet below. Somewhere down there, billions of humans were going about their lives, working, loving, creating, arguing, cooperating, maintaining thousands of cultures while building global civilization. They were doing something the galaxy said was impossible, and Vector realized that his report to the Galactic Council would change everything the galaxy believed about the nature of civilization itself. Vector ordered his crew to go deeper. Surface observations weren't enough. He needed to understand what made these humans capable of such impossible cooperation. The ship's computers began analyzing human communication, art, and culture with more detail than ever before. "Commander, I think I found something," Thren said on the 4th day of observation. "I've been studying how humans respond to disasters. The patterns are consistent across their entire planet." She showed footage of a tsunami in a region called Japan. Within hours of the disaster, aid arrived from around the world. Money, supplies, rescue teams, medical personnel. Nations that competed with Japan economically sent help without hesitation. Citizens from countries Japan had been at war with just 70 years ago donated millions. "Now watch this," Thren continued. She showed earthquakes in Haiti, floods in Pakistan, hurricanes in the Philippines. Every time, the same pattern. Humans from across the planet rushing to help. "Perhaps they expect something in return," Ralvin suggested. "Payment or favors." "I checked that," Thren said. "Much of the help comes from individuals donating their own money or time. They expect nothing back. They help because other humans need help." Vector studied the data carefully. In galactic civilization, altruism existed within groups. A Vrelian would help another Vrelian. A Thosian would help another Thosian. But helping outsiders, helping competitors, that was rare. Resources were precious. Evolution taught species to protect their own first. Yet humans helped strangers on the other side of their planet without hesitation. "Show me their art," Vector said. "Art reveals how a species thinks." The screens filled with human creativity. Music from thousands of cultures, each distinct and unique. Paintings, sculptures, stories, dances. What struck Vector was the diversity. Every region of Earth had developed its own artistic traditions over thousands of years. But more interesting was what happened when these traditions met. Human artists didn't destroy each other's work or declare one style superior. Instead, they learned from each other. A musician from Korea might use instruments from Africa. A painter from France might be inspired by techniques from Japan. Artists from different cultures collaborated, creating something new while respecting what came before. They cross-pollinate their cultures, Thren said, using a human term. They maintain differences while sharing and learning. It makes them more creative, not less. Vector watched a video of a concert where musicians from 6 continents played together. Each brought their own cultural instruments and styles, but they found harmony. The music was beautiful precisely because of its diversity. "This is what we've never understood," Vector said quietly. "We always assumed unity meant sameness. But humans have found unity in difference. On Earth, Dr. Minseo Kong was part of a growing international effort to understand the atmospheric disturbances. Scientists from 40 nations were now coordinating their observations through a shared database. They communicated through video conferences, emails, and instant messages, working around the clock despite different time zones and languages. "I think we need to consider that we're being observed," Minseo said during a video conference with 12 other scientists. "The scanning pattern is too systematic to be natural." "If it's aliens, why don't they just contact us?" asked Dr. Ahmed Hassan from Egypt. "Maybe they're afraid," suggested Dr. Sarah Okonkwo from Lagos. "Or maybe they're being careful." "We'd do the same thing if we found another civilization." "Or maybe they're trying to understand us first," Minseo said. "Think about it. If aliens looked at Earth, what would they see? Hundreds of nations, thousands of languages, constant disagreements. They might think we're too divided to be trusted." "But we're not divided," said Dr. Carlos Rivera from Brazil. "Look at us right now, 40 nations working together to solve this mystery. That's who we are." "We should prepare a message," Minseo suggested. "Something that shows we're ready for peaceful contact. Something that shows our diversity is our strength, not our weakness." The scientists agreed to draft a proposal for their governments. Meanwhile, they continued gathering data, their international cooperation growing stronger with each passing day. Aboard the alien ship, Ralvin remained skeptical. "Commander, I still believe this is a facade. Real cooperation requires force. These humans must have some hidden mechanism holding them together." "Then find it," Vectar ordered. "Look at their power structures. Look at their governments. Find what controls them." Ralvin spent 2 days analyzing human political systems. He found something that confused him even more. Different nations had different systems of government. Democracies, monarchies, republics, federal systems. Some nations had strong central authority. Others distributed power among many groups. There was no single system controlling everything. There was no hidden power forcing cooperation. "I found their methods of enforcement," Ralvin finally reported. "They have created something called international law, treaties and agreements between nations. But, Commander, here's what makes no sense. These laws have no real enforcement mechanism. A powerful nation could ignore them with little consequence, yet most nations follow them anyway." "Why?" Vectar asked. "Because they choose to. Because they believe cooperation benefits everyone more than conflict. Because—" Ralvin paused, struggling with the concept. "Because they want to be part of something larger than themselves." Thren showed more footage. The International Space Station again, but this time focusing on the crew's daily life. Astronauts from nations that had been enemies during the Cold War now floated through corridors together. They shared meals, worked on experiments, fixed problems. One astronaut from Russia helped an American repair equipment. A Japanese astronaut taught a European colleague how to use new software. "Notice their body language," Thren said. "The trust, the friendship. This isn't forced cooperation. This is genuine." Vectar watched as the astronauts laughed together over dinner. They came from different nations, spoke different native languages, believed different things. Yet they had formed a bond that transcended those differences. "I want to see how they teach their young," Vectar said. "Education shapes how a species thinks." The ship's computers analyzed schools across Earth. Children in Korea learned about Korean history and culture. Children in Brazil learned about Brazilian traditions. Children in Egypt learned about Egyptian heritage. Every nation taught its young people to value their own culture, but something else was happening too. Schools taught world history, not just national history. Children learned about other cultures with respect. They studied foreign languages. They participated in international exchange programs. Students from one country visited another and lived with families there, learning to see the world through different eyes. "They're teaching their children to maintain identity while embracing diversity," Thren said. They're raising generations that are proud of their culture but curious about others, loyal to their nation but aware they're part of a larger human family. Vector realized he was seeing something revolutionary. Humans hadn't achieved unity by erasing differences. They achieved it by celebrating differences while finding common ground. They maintained thousands of distinct identities while recognizing one shared identity as humans. It was beautiful, it was unprecedented, and it completely contradicted everything the Galactic Council believed about civilization. "We need more data," Vector said. "I need to understand exactly how they do this before I report to the Council. Because when I tell them what we've found here, it's going to challenge 10,000 years of galactic history." Vector called his senior staff to the main conference room. They had been observing Earth for 8 days now, and he needed to make sense of everything they'd learned. The walls displayed images and data from their observations, a collection of human behavior that defied galactic understanding. "Let's review what we know about galactic civilization," Vector began. "Thren, start with the Vrelian Empire." Thren pulled up historical records. The Vrelian species had 70 distinct cultural groups when they reached the Industrial Age. Over 300 years, the strongest group conquered all others. They destroyed languages, burned cultural artifacts, and forced everyone to adopt Vrelian prime culture. The empire achieved perfect unity, but at the cost of 69 unique civilizations. "The Korthan?" Vector asked. "Civil war," Ralvin said. 7 nations fought with nuclear weapons. 90% of the population died. The survivors were so traumatized they gave up their separate identities entirely. They speak one language now, but only because they killed almost everyone who spoke the other 6. "The Thosians?" "Genetic engineering," Thren continued. "They altered their own DNA to remove aggressive tendencies and increase conformity. Every Thosian thinks similar thoughts and feels similar emotions. They achieved peace by giving up individuality." Vector stood and walked to the large viewport showing Earth below. "Every path to unity in our history required loss. Cultures destroyed, people killed, or identity erased. We believed this was the only way, that diversity and peace were incompatible, that a species must choose between maintaining differences and achieving cooperation. But humans have proven we were wrong," Thren said softly. "Show me the evidence again," Vector ordered. "I want to see exactly how they do it." The screens filled with examples. A video showed a meeting of scientists from 20 nations working on climate change. They argued passionately, disagreeing about methods and approaches. But the arguments were productive, not destructive. They challenged each other's ideas while respecting each other's expertise. Through debate, they found better solutions than any single nation could have developed alone. Another video showed a university classroom in a place called Toronto. Students from dozens of countries studied together. Different perspectives, different experiences, different ways of thinking. Instead of causing conflict, the diversity made discussions richer. A student from India offered insights that a student from Canada hadn't considered. A student from Kenya asked questions that changed how everyone thought about the problem. "They've discovered something we never understood," Thren said. "Diverse groups solve problems better than uniform groups. Different perspectives see different solutions. What we thought was weakness is actually strength." Ralvin pulled up military data. "Look at their peacekeeping forces, soldiers from multiple nations working together to protect people in conflict zones. I've watched them for days now. They come from countries with different military traditions, different tactics, different equipment, but they combine those differences into more effective teams." "It's the same everywhere we look," another crew member added. "Their medical research benefits from having scientists from different cultures approaching problems differently. Their arts are enriched by multiple traditions. Even their cuisine improves as cultures share recipes and techniques." Vector studied a graph showing human innovation over time. As global communication increased, as cultures mixed more freely, The rate of innovation accelerated. More patents, more scientific discoveries, more artistic movements. Diversity was literally making humans smarter and more creative. But how do they maintain this? Ralvin asked. What stops them from fragmenting into endless conflict? I think I found the answer, Thren said. She showed footage of humans in various settings. Parents teaching children, teachers in classrooms, friends talking over meals. They teach empathy. From a young age, humans are taught to imagine what others feel, to consider perspectives different from their own, to value other people's experiences. She showed a children's book from Korea about a girl making friends with someone from another country, a classroom in Brazil where students learned about daily life in Japan, a family in Egypt watching a documentary about life in Norway. They make each other human to each other, Thren continued. They build connections across differences, not by erasing differences, but by understanding them. A human in Korea can read a story by a human in Mexico and recognize shared emotions. A human in Egypt can watch a movie from Japan and understand the characters' struggles. They see themselves in each other despite their differences. Vectar thought about his own species, the Vrelians. When they had conquered other Vrelian cultures, they had done so by dehumanizing them, making them other, making them less. Humans did the opposite. They made each other more human. Show me their response to our presence, Vectar said. Thren pulled up communications from Earth's governments. Dr. Min Seo Kong's international team had convinced several nations that Earth was being observed by aliens. The response was carefully coordinated. Military forces were on alert, but not aggressive. Scientists were preparing communication methods. Political leaders were holding emergency meetings. But what struck Vectar was the debate happening publicly. Humans argued openly about how to respond. Some wanted to hide and observe first. Others wanted to attempt contact immediately. Some were afraid, others were excited. They disagreed strongly about the best approach. Yet through all the disagreement, they were working together. Different opinions pushed them to consider more possibilities. Debate made their plans more thorough. What looked like chaos to an outsider was actually their decision-making process. They argue their way to better decisions, Vectar said with amazement. They don't need everyone to agree. They need everyone to contribute their perspective. The friction between different ideas creates better outcomes. It's brilliant, Thren admitted, and terrifying, because it means the Galactic Council's entire philosophy of governance is wrong. The Council believed in unity through uniformity, representatives from different species, but all thinking in similar ways, all following the same protocols, all working within the same rigid structure. The Council had stability, but it rarely innovated, it rarely adapted, it rarely surprised anyone, but humans surprised at every turn. Look at this, Ralvin said, showing a recent video. The International Space Station crew had been briefed on the possibility of alien observation. Astronaut Jiwoo Park from Korea floated in the cupola module, looking out at the stars. She spoke to the camera, knowing her words would be transmitted to Earth. If someone is out there watching us, Jiwoo said, I hope they see who we really are. We're not perfect. We fight sometimes. We disagree a lot. But we're trying. We're learning to live together despite our differences, maybe even because of our differences. If there's other life in the universe, I hope we can be friends. I hope we can learn from each other. Because that's what humans do best. We learn, we adapt, we grow together. Vectar felt something unusual as he watched. Humans called it hope. They called it inspiration. Whatever it was, it made him believe that the galaxy could be better than it had been. I'm going to recommend that we make contact, Vectar announced, but carefully. We need to show them that we respect what they've built here, because humans haven't just developed a civilization. They've developed a new way of being civilized, and the galaxy needs to learn from them. His crew was silent, processing this statement. Finally, Thren spoke. "The Council won't like this report, Commander. You're essentially telling them that humanity has surpassed us philosophically, that we've been building civilization wrong for thousands of years." "I know," Vectar said, "but it's the truth, and someone has to tell them." Vectar sat alone in his quarters, preparing his report to the Galactic Council. The blue planet turned slowly beyond his viewport, beautiful and impossible. He had spent 10 days observing humans, and now he had to explain to the galaxy's oldest and wisest species that they had been wrong about the fundamental nature of civilization. His fingers moved across the holographic interface, composing carefully chosen words. The Council wouldn't want to hear this. They had built their power on the belief that unity required uniformity, that peace demanded conformity, that civilization meant the strong absorbing the weak until only one culture remained. But Earth proved otherwise. He began his report with the facts: population, technology level, political structures. Then came the part that would shock the Council. 7,000 languages actively spoken, 200 sovereign nations, thousands of distinct cultural groups maintaining separate identities while cooperating globally. The Council would expect him to report impending collapse. That's what happened to divided civilizations. Instead, Vectar wrote about cooperation he'd witnessed, international rescue operations, scientific collaboration across borders, cultural exchange that enriched rather than erased, a species that turned diversity into an advantage. He included specific examples: the International Space Station, where former enemies worked as friends; the United Nations, where nations argued peacefully for decades; universities where students from different cultures studied together and made each other smarter; artists from different traditions inspiring each other to create new beauty. Then came his analysis, the part that would challenge everything the Council believed. Vectar wrote that humans had discovered a truth the galaxy had missed. That diversity created resilience, that different perspectives led to better solutions, that cultural variety made a civilization adaptable rather than weak. He compared humans to galactic species. The Vrelians achieved unity through conquest, but their rigid culture couldn't adapt to new challenges. The Thosians achieved peace through genetic conformity, but they stopped growing and innovating. The Korthan barely survived their pursuit of unity. Humans chose a harder path, but a better one. They maintained the creative chaos of diversity while building frameworks for cooperation. They didn't try to force everyone to think the same way. They just made sure everyone had a voice and everyone followed basic rules. Vectar concluded his report with a recommendation that would end his career or define it. He suggested that humans be invited to join the Galactic Council not as junior members learning from older species, but as teachers, because humanity had achieved something the galaxy desperately needed to learn. He transmitted the report and waited. On Earth, Dr. Min-Seo Kong stood in the Emergency Operations Center in Seoul, surrounded by officials from Korea's government and military. Video screens showed similar centers in Washington, Moscow, Brussels, Beijing, Tokyo, and 40 other cities. The world's leadership was coordinating humanity's response to the possibility of alien contact. "The atmospheric disturbances have increased," Min-Seo reported. "Whatever is scanning us is getting closer or increasing intensity. We need to decide whether to attempt communication." "What if they're hostile?" asked a general from the American video feed. "What if they're friendly and we shoot first?" countered a diplomat from the European feed. The debate raged across the screens, dozens of leaders, each with their own concerns and perspectives. It looked chaotic, but Min-Seo saw the pattern. Through debate, they were considering every angle. Through disagreement, they were making sure no important question went unasked. Finally, a proposal emerged. Prepare a message of peaceful greeting, but maintain defensive readiness. Send signals showing humanity's diversity and our commitment to cooperation. Make clear that Earth was united in its desire for peaceful contact, even if we disagreed about everything else. Dr. Kang, said Korea's president, you and your international team started this. Will you help craft the message? Min Seo felt the weight of the moment. I will. But I want to include voices from many nations and cultures. If aliens are watching us, they should know that humanity speaks with many voices, but one message. We're different, but we're together. Over the next 6 hours, scientists, artists, leaders, and ordinary people from around the world contributed to humanity's first message to another civilization. It included greetings in 20 major languages. It showed images of Earth's cultural diversity. It explained humanity's values of cooperation, curiosity, and respect for life. Most importantly, it was honest. The message acknowledged human conflicts and mistakes. It didn't pretend Earth was perfect or unified in belief. Instead, it showed a species learning to live together despite differences, a species that valued diversity as a source of strength. Aboard Vectar's ship, an urgent message arrived from the Galactic Council. They had reviewed his preliminary report. The tone was curt, disbelief mixed with offense. The Council demanded he return immediately to present his findings in person. They don't believe us, Thren said. I know, Vectar replied. That's why we're going to show them. He opened a communication channel to his home world. Prepare the council chambers for full sensory presentation. I'm bringing recordings. Then he turned to his crew. Before we leave, there's something we need to do. We've been watching these humans for 10 days. They know we're here. It's time to acknowledge that. You want to make contact? Ralvin asked. I want to reveal ourselves. Let them know they've been seen. Let them know someone else in the universe recognizes what they've achieved. The crew worked quickly, programming a response message. Nothing invasive, nothing demanding. Just a simple acknowledgement that Earth had been observed and humanity's message had been received with respect. On Earth, every observatory and monitoring station suddenly detected the same signal, a pattern too precise to be natural, a mathematical sequence that could only be artificial. Then came images, transmitted in a format Earth's computers could interpret. The images showed Earth from space, confirming the aliens had been watching. Then came images of other planets, other civilizations, suggesting a galaxy full of life. Finally, a simple message in mathematical and pictorial form that humans could understand. We see you. We respect you. We will meet again. The operations center in Seoul erupted in controlled chaos. So did centers in every other nation. Humanity had just received confirmation that we weren't alone, and that whoever was out there approached us with respect rather than hostility. Min Seo felt tears in her eyes. She looked at the screens showing her colleagues around the world, all reacting with the same mixture of joy, fear, and wonder. Dr. Sarah in Lagos was crying too. Dr. Ahmed in Cairo was hugging everyone in his center. Dr. Carlos in Brazil was laughing. We did it together, Min Seo said softly. Astronaut Jiwoo Park floated in the International Space Station's cupola, watching Earth below and the stars above. Her crewmates gathered around her. Astronauts from 6 nations pressed close in the small space. They held hands, connected across cultures in this moment of historic magnitude. The galaxy just got bigger, Jiwoo said, and more complicated. Her American colleague laughed. Complicated is what we do best. Think they'll understand us? Asked the Russian crew member. Eventually, Jiwoo replied. Humans are confusing, but we're worth understanding. Vectar set course for the galactic core, where the council waited. His ship carried recordings that would force the galaxy's oldest civilizations to reconsider their most fundamental beliefs. He carried proof that diversity could be strength, that difference could be advantage, that cooperation didn't require conformity. He looked back at Earth one last time before jumping to faster-than-light travel. That blue and green world, so full of different people and cultures and ideas, had changed him. Changed his understanding of what civilization could be. The galaxy had spent thousands of years pursuing peace through unity, through making everyone the same, through erasing differences in pursuit of harmony. But humans showed another way. They proved you could maintain uniqueness while building community. They proved you could disagree while still cooperating. They proved that the friction between different ideas created sparks of innovation rather than fires of destruction. Vector smiled, an expression his species rarely made. The Galactic Council was in for the shock of their existence. Because a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy had just rewritten the rules of civilization, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same.